I'll now call the meeting to order, and for the purposes of this meeting, the minutes will be taken by the nominated Company Secretary, Mr David Segrot. On behalf of the Board, I would like to welcome you to the 2017 Annual General Meeting of the Safety Institute of Australia. Before I continue, I would like to acknowledge and pay our respects to the traditional owners of the land, past, present and emerging. Thank you to those members in attendance, and I also extend my welcome to those attending online via the webinar. I should advise that while the meeting is being webcast, those members attending online can ask questions using the email events@sia.org.au, and we will answer the questions live throughout the AGM. Unfortunately, participants will not be able to vote in any formal voting for those online, as there's no capacity to validate numbers and actual membership attendance. Notwithstanding this, I'm pleased with the ability of our members to access this meeting from wherever they might be in the country. Access for rural and remote members is vitally important. I would now like to move to items 2 and 3 of the agenda. Apologies for the meeting have been received and noted. I now call upon the Company Secretary to advise of those apologies. Thank you, David. I'll now call upon any persons in receipt of any proxy to have this declared and recorded for the purposes of the Company Secretary, if not already done so.
Any proxies? No
Thank you.
proxies.
The meeting's not able to commence without a quorum, which under the company's constitution is 20 members present, either in person or proxy. And I can now confirm that with the result of more than 20 members, that there is a quorum. So the meeting will continue. With respect to the agenda has been available on the website for the SIA for several days, and we'll deal with those matters of a traditional AGM nature. There are a number of items of ordinary business for this meeting to resolve. We will firstly present the annual report of the Safety Institute of Australia Limited. I will then invite the CEO to give his report, Mr David Clark. Mr Nathan Winter, Deputy Chair and Chair of the Finance and Audit Board Subcommittee, will present the financial report. We will then move a motion in relation to the appointment of the auditors for 2017-18. Upon completion of these items, the appointed returning officer will declare the outcomes of the recent director elections. I'll move to item 5, the meeting minutes. Before progressing with the agenda, I will move that the minutes from the previous AGM, held on the 5th of September 2016 in Melbourne, be accepted as a true and accurate reflection of the proceedings of the meeting. I'll call for someone on the floor to second that motion. Thank you, John Temby. Let the minutes reflect that the previous AGM minutes have been accepted. As this is the annual general meeting and no other matters of business were raised by members for resolving, only those matters contained within the agenda will be addressed during the meeting. I'll now move to item 6, which is the presentation of the annual report. It is my pleasure to report to members and stakeholders on the progress of the Safety Institute of Australia for the 2016-2017 financial year. As the National Association for the OHS profession, we have continued to build capability of the profession and started in earnest on our work to give voice to the profession through the publishing of our policy agenda. This year has also seen solid progress made against the SIA Strategic Plan 2016 to 2021, launched last financial year. Sadly, the past year has seen the country experience many high-profile workplace safety incidents, which have placed a national spotlight on occupational health and safety. This, along with the rise in OHS incidents internationally, demonstrates that our work is far from done. When someone is killed at work, seriously injured, or becomes ill from work, the impacts are felt far and wide. The Institute acknowledges this. The family and the loved ones of those who did not return home at the end of their working shift, or those who have suffered a permanent disabling injury or illness. This, in 2017, remains unacceptable, and as a profession, we must remain true to our convictions and never forget our purpose always reflecting on what we can be doing differently and what we can be learning. The Institute's role is to encourage this learning and reflection, providing the spaces and places for health and safety people to come together as a community to learn from each other, share experiences and insights, challenge philosophies and approaches, and most importantly, encourage each other. As OHS professionals, we must be enablers in business, not blockers, striving for solutions to make things happen safely as opposed to finding reasons why something can't be done. Reducing complexity each and every day. Procedures and paperwork don't save people's lives. Gold-plated systems are costly and burdensome. We need to be more conscious of the differences between work as done versus work as imagined. We need to be able to cut through more, and more especially at the front line. We need not be creating new and more safety initiatives each and every day, but rather hold course and remain disciplined on the most critical few that will change the game. We must be injecting more of the H into OHS. The state of one's mind when making one's decision is critical to whether they live or die, and is critical to improving safety outcomes. The connection is very real. We need to be clear on the commercial value of what we are doing. We need to be understanding the business context. We need to be considering OHS in the context of technological, market and demographic developments of the economy. We also need to be open to new ideas, learning and challenging ourselves and peers, and embracing diversity in thinking. The old way will not be the new way. During the year, we commenced a number of vital activities in line with our strategic plan, which articulates 4 key focus areas in which we target our resources to bring the health and safety profession together: capability, policy and research, engagement and member services. The Board continues to provide appropriate oversight and assurance of the strategic plan, and over the last 12 months, the Board has had a particular focus on capability. Every well-developed profession has key elements which drive and assure capability of the profession, and the OHS profession should be no different. The SIA is working to raise the bar of the OHS profession to give the highest quality advice to industry, and critical to our ability to develop are the following things which any well-structured profession maintains. Firstly, a foundation body of knowledge which describes the key functional areas of OHS work and provides guidance for the OHS education. Secondly, education assurance, and in our case, that takes the form of the accreditation of higher education based on the BOC, and secondly, our advocacy to improve WHS vet sector training. Thirdly, role definitions, including knowledge and capability skill requirements at each level, and this is done in the form of the Global Capability Framework, which we've signed up for internationally. Capability assurance, which comes in the form of certification, and finally a framework for career learning, the new CPD framework, which is currently under development. This year has also seen us make progress in our work in policy with the launch of our policy agenda for the SIA and the introduction of a series of OHS policy position statements. This was done in a very careful and considered way. We understand and recognise many issues in our field are complex, not easily resolved, and that there are many competing views. However, the profession has a unique perspective, and that perspective should be heard. So, we can do our bit to positively influence the development of health and safety policy and practice across the country and influence this internationally. This year has also seen a greater recognition of the SIA by key stakeholders, and the SIA profile is benefiting as a result. This in turn enables a stronger and clearer voice to be heard where it matters. Our vision for safe and healthy workers in productive workplaces is something which other stakeholders can share a commitment to, working with us for better results and outcomes. Our work together with the strategic partners is slowly but steadily raising the profile of health and safety and getting key messages across, and together we can be more effective. I am pleased to report that the SIA is in good health, both financially and organisationally. And while this has taken some time, the SIA is now well positioned to capitalise on the work and the efforts to date. We have course-corrected this business, and we have proven to bring about stability within the operations, and this now means it's time to come together and look positively to the future. As the Chair of the Board of Directors, I am pleased to hear the regular positive feedback from our stakeholders. In fact, I'm pleased to hear any feedback about the progress we continue to make and where we can improve. And the Board welcomes this opportunity to listen to such feedback from stakeholders and members. We continue to govern the SIA in accordance with all of the regulations and with the guiding principles as set out in our strategic plan. I am a firm believer that we will always achieve more in improving OHS outcomes when we come together as a community rather than fight a cause alone. There will never be a more important and better time to join the profession and the SIA community than now, as we step out with our capability and policy agendas. The Board is setting a strong growth agenda for the next few years aimed at growing the profile of the profession and aimed at growing the profile of the SIA. It's time that people who work in OHS across Australia stood up and were counted and recognised for the profession that we are and that we're becoming. The next couple of years promises to be exciting for the Institute, and I look forward to seeing more of the profession become part of the SIA. After all, it is our profession and it's your institute. Finally, I would like to convey my sincere gratitude to the following people and groups who make the work of the SIA possible. Those at the heart of our institute, our members, including the community of volunteers across the country for your ongoing expertise, commitment and support. The staff at the Institute, whose hard work is valued and appreciated and who function every day with the members' interests front of mind. Our many strategic partners, sponsors, supporters and stakeholders. Without you, we cannot achieve our goals. And finally, my board colleagues for their support and dedication, and especially those outgoing directors for their contributions and efforts. Special thanks to Deputy Chair Nathan Winter and our independent non-executive directors, Ms Victoria Taylor and Mr Peter Hannikin. I would also like to acknowledge Mr David Sekrot, who has served in the capacity of Company Secretary over the last few years and has devoted much of his time to the SIA. We know what it takes to volunteer time, and your commitment and all of your contributions are greatly appreciated. I would also like to acknowledge and thank all of those people across Australia who are working in OHS and who are committed to improving occupational health and safety outcomes. It's time we come together and work as a true OHS community and drive better outcomes across the country. Once again, I am personally honoured to have served as the Chair of the Board of Directors for the Safety Institute of Australia for 2016-17. It is a privilege to serve the profession. I appreciate your ongoing support and we look forward to another successful year ahead. I commend the 2016-17 annual report to you. I now move to item 6B of the agenda, being consideration of the operational CEO report, and I would like to invite Mr David Clark to present the CEO's report. David has assumed the role of CEO since 1 September 2014. Thank you, David.
Thanks, Patrick. Okay. Thanks very much, everyone. My job here this afternoon, you've got the annual report in front of you. You will have had a scan of that report. I'm going to go through elements of that and pull out for you some of the highlights. The first thing I'd like to say is that, as most of you know, this is in my career, this is my third responsibility in leading a professional body or an association. And I am constantly humbled by the extraordinary body of work that goes into what is effectively a small business. It's one of Australia's most complex small businesses, the Safety Institute of Australia, with a turnover of just over $1.7 million, and Nathan will give the financial report. We raise nearly $200 per year on behalf of our members, in addition to the membership fee that they pay us, and we spend that in the pursuit of the goals that are outlined in the strategic plan. And for that kind of turnover, I just feel a great sense of pride of the work of the more than 200 people that either through being paid to work for the Institute or through their voluntary work for the Institute do an extraordinary job. So my job as the Chief Executive is to take the strategic plan that the Board provides me and to try to take off bite-sized chunks of that and expend the human and technical and financial resources of the Institute on your behalf in the pursuit of those strategic goals. They are lofty goals. It's an extraordinary challenge that we have at the Institute, but I think we're doing a fantastic job, as I said, and I think it's due to the tremendous work that everybody's doing. So I'm going to go through a series of key things. Patrick's alluded to them. So if we look at our capability agenda, we see the bottom line there, the foundation, evidence-based body of knowledge that every profession needs to inform the quality of education. And in the last couple of years, we've had 3 new chapters of the body of knowledge underway, 2 related to process safety, both launched in this past year, and continuing work on a further chapter on engineered safe design. We've now commenced a program, a long-term program of review of chapters of the body of knowledge. And as we've often said, the body of knowledge is a work in progress, and I suspect in 20 years' time, that is exactly how we'll describe it. That is how it is supposed to be. It needs to absorb emerging knowledge and emerging evidence as it's acquired, and continue to be a provider of guidance to people who are providing education in the field of health and safety. The current review of vet training packages, which is underway, and I'll say some more about that in a few moments, but one of the key reference documents for that review for the first time is the Australian OHS body of knowledge. The second capability plank being accreditation. All successful professions, as Patrick has described, have some sort of assurance framework for their education programs, and we're no different. We now have 24 higher educational programs across Australia that are accredited. OCAB runs independently of the Institute. We auspice it. They have an independent board, and that board conducts accreditations as it sees fit, and it contains expertise from both industry and academia who work together to ensure that the accreditation program is reflecting emerging industry need and is not too, it's not overly focused just on the educational component, but also that the educational component reflects industry need. This year we farewell Pam Pryor, the founding registrar of OCAB. She's done an extraordinary job in what you would call the establishment phase of education accreditation in Australia in occupational health and safety. We welcome Megan Brown to that role, and really looking forward to working with Megan. I'm sure she'll do a fantastic job. We've got a new financial model for OCAB in terms of annual payments rather than big chunky one-off accreditation payments. That will provide a little bit more financial continuity for the agency. And ensure that over a period of time it's close to a break-even activity, but because of the scale, the economy of scale for OCAB, the Institute will continue to support it to do the important work that it does. It's not a significant financial impost to the Institute, and of course it's a fee-for-service activity, but there is some financial support, and it's particularly important support. I mentioned the vet sector training component. We're interested in education. Obviously, so many of our members and so many people in the field of health and safety work in the field with vet sector training, workplace health and safety training, and we're concerned about the quality of diplomas and advanced diplomas, and we said so a year and a half ago, and we said we intended to do something about that. A lot of people looked at that cynically and said, well, you're just going to complicate an already complicated sector. What we've achieved as an institute by careful and well-targeted advocacy is a technical panel-led review of the training packages in workplace health and safety. And the people on that review are industry HSE leaders who know a little bit about what industry's needs are in health, safety and environment. They are an important group of people, and they're making a great contribution right now to that review. So that's particularly important. Patrick mentioned the Global Capability Framework. Next week, Patrick and I and Nathan, our Deputy Chair, will all be in Singapore for the World Congress for Safety and Health at Work. And the Institute, along with representatives of professional bodies and other key organisations from more than 20 countries around the world, will be signing on to the Singapore Accord, which is adopting within their country a focus on the Global Capability Framework. So we have agreement across more than 20 countries now, on how we describe and define the knowledge and skill requirements for health and safety people at 6 different levels of work. Every profession needs that. We've never had that. This is a very, very significant project, I believe, for the future of health and safety in this country. We've been certifying for the last year. We have more than 1,400 people certified, and I still call them the early adopters to this program. It's an intergenerational program. The Americans, the Canadians and the British have been doing this for 20 or 30 years. It's about time we got on with it and did it. It's been a controversial program, particularly around the issue that members made really clear to us that we need to be more careful about how we set the entry criteria to take into account people who developed their education in a different environment to that which exists today and currently work at quite significant levels within the field as senior practitioners and professionals, but may not necessarily have the education background that we're looking for today's people. And so we're actually responding to that, and we've created new pathways for OHS professional level, and we're looking at the other 2 levels as well. It's been a great beginning, lots more work to do. We've had the emergence of vacancies seeking certified people, which is a good start, and lots more work to go, and we'll be talking more about that with our members and with HSE leaders and with industry in the year ahead. Patrick mentioned our policy agenda. As he said, it's published. The position statements are established. The one thing I want to say about that policy agenda, it's not full of dramatic statements. It's not meant to be. It defines the foundation nature of where we as a profession feel that the profession has an important voice to be heard. We don't wish to advocate on all areas of health and safety. The profession has some unique perspectives, and we're focused very, very hard on those perspectives. And those of you who want to go through our policy agenda will see what I mean. And to that end, that's what took us towards some of our early work around the need to improve the diploma content. It's not the only problem with diplomas. Delivery is a problem as well, but we'll get on to that. And that's what allowed us to focus our advocacy work on that. Quiet but important background advocacy work with key decision makers on the national stage, and that allowed us to quietly go about the process of getting that review. The Institute is increasingly about networks, and every organisation today, if it talks about newness and change, one of the things about institutions is they are no longer buildings. We know that an institute looks like often a building with a sign on the top of it, and we think of it when we say that word. It's no longer like that anymore, and it hasn't been that way for some time. It's not that way for young people who've grown up with computers in their hands from the age of 3 and 4 now. It's about networks and new kinds of networks, new kinds of engagement. But it's not about throwing out the baby with the bathwater either. We have senior networks of highly experienced people, in particular with the College of Fellows, that's now under the leadership of Dr. Kelly Johnston. He's doing some fantastic work, has established some committees now, brought in a whole lot of new people, and are providing advice to us around standards, CPD, mentorship, ethics, and also, by the way, our awards program. So the College of Fellows will be announcing new entry criteria to the college so that we will continue to offer fellowship of the Institute and giving senior people who've made great contributions to the field an opportunity to contribute to the development of their field. That's the purpose of that network. As far as other networks go, we've had a growing young safety professionals program. We've had the new WISH network launches recently, Women in Safety and Health. Bit of controversy there. Not everybody thinks it's a great idea to have a Women in Safety and Health network. My personal view, and one that I promulgated as the Chief Executive of the Institute, is we are a broad church of people with a wide range of attitudes. They should all be respected. And when a group of my members want to get together and talk about issues of common interest, my question is, how can I help? So if you are a member and you would like to see a network in your region or an issue that you'd like to take on with some other people and talk through with some other people, give me a call personally and I'll see how I can help and how the Institute can help you do that. Our branches are really critical networks of the Institute, and I want to personally thank the more than 100 people who sit on our branch networks and create so many events and activities and engagement on the ground throughout Australia's 6 states and 2 territories. They are a really critical part of what the Institute does. And just a quick shout out to the Victorian branch and its chair, Sergeant James, for the work they've done in creating today's event as well. We've got nearly 100 people, new people, involved in committees as a result of an expression of interest in the past year. And that's an indication of our acknowledgement of the changing nature of the Institute and constantly providing that invitation for new people to get involved. So we have right now, we're starting to get a wonderful mix of knowledgeable, skilled, long-standing members, new, energetic, possibly sometimes overexcited younger members who are very keen to see new things. And it's a fantastic mix. And I see so much energy coming from it and so much fantastic relationship being built around that. So I just want to urge you all to continue to be part of that. You know about these things. These are information services we provide. I can't deliver an operations report without mentioning them because a lot of resource and effort goes into these. They're very, very important. They're just another thing on a massive list of things that we do, but they're very, very important. I'm very proud of the OHS magazine, which was in fantastic nick when I first came to this organisation 3 years ago and is still a really high quality magazine, and I'm proud that the Institute publishes it. Our congratulations to its editor, Craig Donaldson. Steve Cowley, also the editor of our journal. Our journal's had some quiet times, but we've recently made an arrangement with EBSCO Host so that our journal will have much wider international exposure, the articles contained therein, and that will contribute to wider readership, which will contribute to higher citation, which will contribute to greater demand for the journal, which is kind of how it works as I understand it. There's room for change with a number of things that we do, and we're always trying to improve our communications and information services. And our members, in their 882 members who responded to our membership survey, weren't backward in coming forward and telling us what we ought to do better. And a lot of those things came around our communications and information services. So we're responding to that. We've analysed that. I've actually published the analysis of that member survey. If you're interested in seeing it, you can find it. If you can't find it, call our office. Our mentorship program this year, Deb Burlington, I'm not sure if Deb's here, she was here today, one of the speakers, and Rob Lowe, fantastic job setting up that program, and I want to personally thank them. Rob's moved away from the program now, but what a brilliant job Rob did in putting a lot of the hard yards into setting up that program. It was built on the previous work too of I believe the Victorian branch, who had a fantastic mentorship program. We've got a lot of those old documents. We built some new stuff on top of the old stuff, threw in some information technology, and we've got an online mentorship program with more than 40 active mentorships. And I urge all members to put up your hand and be part of being either a mentor or a mentee. And you know, I've just taken on a mentor, and I'm 57 years of age, so it doesn't matter how old you are, you can be either. You've got something to offer others, and you've got something to learn from others. So I urge you to be part of it. Online products, we've got a new website. We're about to give you a new access to the member section of that website and go online. Some of you will love it. Some of you will say, I love the old one. We'll see how it all goes. It's been an incredible journey getting that up. We have a new member database, and that's going to help us relate to you much better. It's got much greater functionality, and that's important when we're in communication with people now electronically so much. Our webinar and CPD library for members is going to be coming up soon, so you'll see things occurring online for you to access through whatever, whether it's your phone or your tablets or your PCs, you'll be able to access things offered by the Institute to its members that it will be useful for your work and your professional development. We're also looking at some online tools as well. We've separated from Informa after a 10-year arrangement, which in its latter years was not good for the Safety Institute of Australia, and we've now moved out into our own framework, and we've created a new conference brand. I've mentioned to people, Safety in Action was previously given to Informa to use in perpetuity for their exhibition program, so they've now got that. And we've created a new genuine convention brand called Safetyscape, and in May every year we're going to offer an opportunity for anybody who is a stakeholder in the field of health and safety to come and deliver something under the banner of Safetyscape. They'll be welcome. It's going to be a week of programs and activities for the health and safety community. We've already got some new partners in the National Road Safety Partnership Program. AgSafe are coming on board. We've approached FarmSafe and other agencies as well. There's quite a few interesting organisations who are going to be delivering events during that 2 or 3 days this year. So we're looking forward to that. Not to mention the 8 state and territory conferences that the Institute runs with the fantastic efforts of all of its branches who put in a lot of work, and also Penny Toth and the events team at the National Office. I did want to just put that up there, webinars. It's part of what we're doing now. We're growing our webinars. We're going to grow more and more webinars. It's an important CPD delivery tool, and it's critically important for regional and rural members who told us again in the member survey this year that they want better access to the same types of things that people in the city get, and we're working hard on that. The training program, Patrick mentioned CPD, ongoing CPD. We've got a new online CPD tool for members. We've been trialling that. We're developing new partnerships with a range of providers, and we are introducing the first national OHS training and professional development framework. We don't think it's the job of the Safety Institute of Australia to just become another provider in the field of health and safety. We think it's the job of the Institute of Australia to assist in ensuring that the quality of the training that's offered people in the field of health and safety is better than what it currently is, and offered at more effective pricing. Currently, it's a fragmented field. It's awash with all sorts of different interests, delivering a wide range of training that's not targeted. Our training and professional development framework is going to promote the best training, the best targeted training, and the best value training. And it's going to put that out there, and it's going to acknowledge and endorse that training and try to push people through and into that training to, again, allow that to be more effectively delivered. And in that way, we're going to lean on some of the poor quality training and demand higher standards before we get behind it and promote it. So it's going to be an important part of what we do in the future. I just wanted to briefly mention something about our events philosophy. We're interested in the problems that have been around prices, and people see our national conference will have 30 to 40% lower prices than they previously have had now that we're in charge of the finances. We're not interested in making a stack of money. We're interested in providing a great quality professional development event. That's our attitude towards events overall and our conferences. We're creating a gap between member and non-member rates and urging people to become part of the Institute if they want to get those member rates. We're creating diversity in our offering so that there's something for everyone. We haven't done enough for practitioners in particular, and we need to grow our offering to practitioners, thousands of practitioners throughout Australia who are looking for a good CPD and training and a networking experience, and we've got to do more there. We're growing our events program. 2 years ago we ran 44 events. This year we ran 100. Next year we'll run more. And I've mentioned the framework to lean on the quality of CPD. Finally, looking ahead, you're going to hear more about our capability agenda and our policy agenda. It's particularly important. We believe those 5 key projects: body of knowledge, accreditation of education, a framework, global capability framework, certification of the profession based on that global capability framework, and high quality CPD. If we as a profession get behind those things and do them well, the standard of health and safety delivery in this country will rise, and it will rise significantly if we can get behind it. The sector's been too fragmented for too long and weaker as a result. I think we can all see the value of these projects. We can all argue about how well we do them and what needs to go into them. But the Institute's job in the next year is to share that broader agenda and invite people to be a part of that broader agenda. Then we can get down to the nitty-gritty. We're talking about how we really need to improve the body of knowledge. Have we got accreditation right, or can we tweak that? What do we need to do to change certification to make it just right? What sort of CPD do people really need based on industry need? We can have all of those conversations. Our policy agenda work will continue. Our job is not to be loud, it's to be effective. We don't, I know advocacy organisations with $5, $10, $15, $20 million budgets. They're the ones you see in the news. I appreciate that members want us to profoundly change the attitudes of the community towards health and safety and employers towards health and safety. But I actually believe the best way that that's going to happen is by supporting the profession to be much more effective at what it does, which goes back to our capability agenda. We can't deliver the $15 or $20 million advocacy program each year, but we can do the advocacy work to look at where the law needs to change, where regulation needs to change, where things need to be improved, how the profession its status within the field of, within industry, and those sorts of things. We can look at those things and we can work on those things. We need to, as an organisation, build our networks, and we need to bridge the gap between older and younger people. We have almost in some ways an institute of two different types of people who grew up with IT and people who didn't. And there's quite a significant slice through there. And we need to be there for both of those groups during this change. And the successful professional associations they don't throw out the old in order to embrace the new entirely. Because, I'm part of the old, I get it. And, I love reading the magazine. I don't want it online. I want to read it. And there's a lot of other examples of that. But we still need to find ways to connect younger and older members. We need to bridge the gap between the older and the newer institution, become the institution of the future. 9 out of 10 professional associations have a dropping membership. I'm pleased to report that without a promotional program in the last 12 months, the Institute's membership grew slightly, just a little, but it's the first time. It had been dropping for 5 or 6 years prior to that, partly because of, as we've talked about before, performance that could be improved. We've got the performance right. Now we're going to move out to the next stage, and we believe that the Institute will grow if we make the right offering to emerging young health and safety people. So more opportunities for people to engage. So that's it from me. I know I spoke for a long time. I'm in trouble for that. Thank you very much, and we really look forward to a great year ahead, and I'll hand you back to Patrick.
Just stay for questions. Thank you, David.
It was the drink I had.
So look, I'll now invite any questions from the floor or from those attending online for either myself or David of our reports. We've got a couple of roving mics, I think, for anyone here in the room. Are there any questions online? Nothing online as yet?
Did it sound okay? Yes. Great. All right. That's good.
Okay, so on that basis, I'll now move that the annual report of the operations of the SIA be accepted, and I'll call for a seconder. Thank you, Roger. So, Mr. Company Secretary, I can declare the annual report has been received and adopted by the members. Thank you, David. I'll now move to item 6C, and we'll invite Mr. Nathan Winter, Deputy Chair of the Board and Chair of the Finance and Audit Board Subcommittee to present the financial reports. Nathan does a stellar job in ensuring our finances and compliance are in good shape. Thanks, Nathan.
Thank you, Patrick. Good afternoon, everyone. You may think it's evening already, but because I'm from Western Australia, it's still only 3:40 or something, thereabouts. So in FY17, the Safety Institute of Australia revenue was up 14% on the previous financial year to $1.72 million. So I just have to highlight and apologise this because I know someone will pick up and ask the question. In the annual financial report, I was actually one of the people charged with proofreading it, but I missed the fact that our current figure is 1.62 million, so that figure in the annual report is incorrect. But the figure in the financial statements, our revenue in there is correct. The mixture of revenue plus other revenue, which is interest, adds up to $1.72 million. Dave wrote in his SIA report within the annual report, and I quote, "In these pages, you will find our progress. For those of you with a passion for change, it's always too slow," end quote. Having a passion for change myself, I was thinking that a rate of change within the Safety Institute was also too slow. However, on the eve of this annual report going to print, as I was reading it, proofreading it, I reflected and thought about a tour that I'd done through Cooper's Brewery with the Dairy Industry Association of Australia in my first year of professional employment. Is everyone familiar with the Cooper's beer brand? Raise your hand if you've heard of Cooper's beer. Everyone's heard of that? Okay. So as part of that tour, we had a brief presentation from Dr. Tim Cooper, and he stated that Cooper's aims for 8 to 9% growth per annum. So that's what they consider sustainable growth. So with Coopers being the largest and most well-known family-owned brewery in Australia, and the Safety Institute having a growth rate of over 50% above the rate at which Coopers target, when you do the maths, you realise that if the Safety Institute continues to grow at the same rate of growth as we have in the past 12 months, it's only a time before the Safety Institute Australia is a bigger and better known brand than Coopers. Okay, now can I ask you to stand up and have a stretch is what people, safety practitioners, professionals often ask their audience to do. But I haven't actually asked you to stand up to stretch at the moment. I've actually asked you to stand up to have a look under your seat and see whether there's anything attached to the bottom of your seat. If there's an empty seat next to you, maybe check whether there's anything under the base of that one. What have we found over here? Got one? What have you got there, Sarge? $1 coin. $1 coin. So, okay, we've got a few people who've got a $1 coin. There's actually 10 out there, so yeah, check the spare chairs next to you. Yep, we found a few. Okay, so what's the moral of this little story here? Exercise. If you get off your butt, you just might make a buck. So now I need to confess that's not original material either. That was from a session I attended, I think when I was back at uni. So it's been around for a while. Sorry. Okay, so this year the Safety Institute of Australia, we've been off our butt. That's the national office and all the branch committees in organising lots of events, as Dave's told us about, and Penny's done a great job, obviously coordinating with the branches, as have all of the national office staff. So we've made a surplus of $124,000. So the real beauty of making a surplus when you're a not-for-profit is that gives us $124,000 to reinvest in the objects of our constitution, because none of it can be distributed to our members being a not-for-profit. So in the year ahead, we'll be reinvesting some of that $124K in doing so. So the board approved a budget for FY17 with a surplus of just $1,100. So how did we end up with a well above budgeted surplus of $124K? This comes as a result of a few things, including a greater uptake of corporate memberships than we'd planned, and largely from the auditor's application of different accounting treatment to what we had intended to apply. And so I'll briefly explain this now. So one was around the capitalising of the development of the new SIA website and membership database that's to be released very shortly. Where we'd plan to simply expense all the costs associated with the development of this, as we believed the saleability of it as an asset to another party was dubious, and therefore we intended to apply the accounting principle of conservatism and expense the entire cost. However, the auditors informed us that we had to capitalise the costs and then amortise it over a number of years. So this meant less expense in FY17, even though we've already paid the cash for it, and therefore a greater surplus. However, it means we will now have an unbudgeted amortisation expense that we'll have to incur in FY18. Another was around the accounting treatment of the funds received from an enforceable undertaking that are to go towards the further development of the body of knowledge. As the expense associated with development of the body of knowledge wasn't going to occur until FY18, we intended to treat the enforceable undertaking funds as income in advance. This would have treated as revenue in FY18 and not FY17. However, again, the auditors have informed us that we had to treat it as a donation, or as it was a donation. We had to be recognised, the revenue had to be recognised in FY17. So again, this has given us more revenue in FY17 and less in FY18. Now, also, following my attendance at an Australian Institute of Company Directors event recently on the future of the AGM, where there were calls for directors to demonstrate their and their organisation's transparency at AGMs, to demonstrate to you that we're being fully transparent here and not simply painting a rose-coloured picture for you of our finances, I'll share with you the only two minor observations that auditors did make as they're auditing our accounts. Firstly, they observed that an accrual for long service leave entitlements for Gail, once she reached 5 years of service, had not been made. It should be noted this milestone was only reached in June, days before the end of the financial year and the subsequent audit. So I'd just like to take a moment now, please, just to acknowledge Gail reaching her milestone of 5 years of employment with SIA and being our longest serving employee. Thank you very much, Gail, for all your hard work and being part of modernising our accounting practices at the SIA that have led to the positive financial performance that the SIA has seen today. So I should progress on. revenue. So, yeah, as I said, 1.72 million is the correct figure. And this is our surplus deficit up to 124k, so obviously a big turnaround over the years. The other observation that the auditors made was that even though we had an accrual and provisions for our employees' annual leave wage entitlements, we hadn't included a provision for the company superannuation and the leave loading that's associated with those annual leave wage entitlements. We've got plenty of cash in the bank, so we've now corrected that and we've accrued for all employee benefits, including associated superannuation and leave loading. So we've still been issued with an unqualified auditor's opinion for our FY17 audit of our accounts by Crow Horath. So as the board has approved another essentially balanced budget for FY18 with a surplus of just 2k back in May, this is before we were unaware of the application of the above accounting treatments I talked about. That means that if everything else proceeds according to budget, the SIA will end up with a deficit in the current financial year FY18 of the order of $55,000, as there will be $16,500 less revenue as a result of that movement of the enforceable undertaking funds from FY18 to FY17. And there'll also be an amortisation expense associated with the new website and member database. However, I have hopes that a few more corporate members and we might quickly close that gap. We have again this year very tightly managed our cash to maximise the amount of cash we have invested in term deposits at any given point in time to be able to generate some interest income, and we've also tightly managed our accounts receivable and had no bad or doubtful debts for FY17. That's all I'd like to say about the financial statements. What questions do you have? Any online? Nothing online? All right. Then I'd like to move the motion that the FY17 financial statements of the SIA be accepted. Second to Mike Edwards. All right. And then the other motion. Do we need to vote on the? We need to vote on the motion, though. But do we need to vote on the first motion? Yes. So is everyone in favour of accepting FY17? Yep. Anyone against? No. Unanimous. The second motion I need to move is that we retain Crow Horath as our appointed auditors for FY18. Seconder. Yep. Andrew Maunda, seconder for that motion. All in favour? Anyone against? No. And we'll also in the course of the next year just go through the process of actually calling for a few requests for quotation for audit for FY19 from different providers to make sure that they are still being market competitive in their audit costs. All right. Thank you very much. I'll hand back to Patrick.
Thank you, Nathan, and thank you to those board members that also make up the remainder of the Finance Audit, Risk and Compliance Subcommittee of the Board. And our expression to the CEO is very clear in terms of chasing down surplus for FY18 as we continue the trend. I'll now move to item 7 of the agenda. Item 7 is about the election of directors. There are 3 positions that become vacant as at today, and I would like to firstly thank the outgoing directors for their contribution and wish them well and success into the future. Serving as a volunteer director requires commitment, passion, resolve and conviction. And I've got to say I'm honoured to work with what I believe is a high calibre board of professionals that are committed, that are hard-working and very supportive, who first and foremost have your interests at heart. We work constructively together as a team and work diligently in preserving and prosecuting our organisational goals and objectives, and I'm grateful for their support. For those that leave the board this evening, my sincere and on behalf of the board and the members, a sincere appreciation for your support and commitment. I would also like to acknowledge the various nominees who put themselves forward to be considered by the members for election to the board. I think you would all agree that this year saw a very strong slate of qualified candidates who all care about this great institute, so thank you for those who put their hand up and nominated to be part of governing our institute. I would now like to invite Mr David Segrot to announce those directors who have been elected to the board of the Safety Institute of Australia for a 3-year term in accordance with the relevant provisions of the company artefacts. Thanks, David.
Thank you, Patrick. The election this year was again conducted on the basis of electronic and direct voting, with votes closed and tabulated as at 5 p.m. last Friday, the 25th of August 2017. Total of 240 members voted, with a total of 640 votes validly cast, plus 1 informal vote. The results of the votes were Colin Chua, 23 votes, Lindsay Krantz, 45, Adam Fuster, 18, Stephen Thomas, 39, Martin Hill, 23, Andrew Maunder, 36, Naomi Kemp, 151, Bob Stacey, 22, Bryce McLaren, 72, Hannah Waters, 78, Rodney Fox, 20, Kevin Figueiredo, 71, Adam Gurley, 42. On the basis of that, I declare that Naomi Kemp, Hannah Waters and Bryce McLaren are elected as directors of the Safety Institute of Australia Limited for the period of 3 years. Thank you.
So naturally, I welcome to the board Hannah Waters, Naomi Kemp and Bryce McLaren. All of these candidates, I'm sure, will bring a range of skills and expertise to better govern our organisation and institute. And I do believe that it's the first time in our 70-year history that we have a board that has a majority of female participants. Therefore, I do need to acknowledge Lindsay, thank you, Andrew, thank you, and naturally David, choosing not to be re-elected. Thanks again for the substantial contributions that you've made during your terms. That brings us to the close of the meeting. As there are no further items of business on notice for the meeting or special resolutions, I do declare that the meeting is now closed. I would like to once again thank those members who attended in person and those who attended via webinar. Thank you and have a good evening.